Hi, this is D.S. Jacksheimer, and this is another edition of The Spectre, and I'm going to be taking on the topic of white privilege, the term. And it is basically, it was originated, the term supposedly coined by Peggy McIntosh, and she wrote an essay called White Privilege. And it originally had more to do with white male privilege, and then she went into white privilege because of her own white privilege and how it gave her advantages. And it's very fascinating and allegorical, and largely full of shit, I think, when it comes down to it. It's never, and I'm speaking, I'm not speaking as a college professor or anybody, and everybody most people on social media that I knew who used to be reasonable people before the internet, and I knew them back in the 90s, or before what the internet became now, and all the social media sites, because they're wired into it, and they're brainwashed, and they can't think for themselves anymore, and put things under have any healthy scrutiny for things like this. But the term white privilege is a generalization of an ethnic group. Even if it's white people, it never, usually when you generalize about a group of people, it never leads to anything good. Now, Peggy McIntosh's essay discusses white privilege, meaning that, how minorities, black people, they're not represented in a lot of things, and her privilege is that, she can, I guess, do a lot of things black people can't do, or white or Hispanic people. She can open up a magazine or newspaper and see that her race is represented. Even though, if I open up just pick up a periodical or whatever, comic book, and I'm not like, oh, there's no white people in here. Brrr. That sucks. I read something because I'm interested in what's in that magazine or book, because I'm a consumer. If I want to watch something or read something, it's because I like the content of it. I don't give a fuck if the people are white in it. I don't care. When I was a kid, I watched movies. I wanted to see the movie Shaft, so I went to the library when you could rent, you still can. But I went because I wanted to see that movie, because I heard it was cool, and I saw it and it was cool. I want to see things that were different from me. I don't always want to see people. I'm fucking, and it's not, I don't have anything against white people. I don't have anything against anybody. I don't care if the actor is good, or the content of the movie is good, or the book is good, or whatever, the magazine article is good. It's good, irregardless of the race or whatever is represented in that. And if I go to the grocery store, I see this of course was written in 1988, and this is an older woman, and she grew up in times when things were very segregated, in her defense. However, if I go to the grocery store, I am not shocked to see someone of a different ethnicity there, or someone speaking a different language there. Okay, I work at a university where there are people of different races and who speak different languages, in the commissary where I work, and stuff like that. I'm not shocked or offended that they're there, or anything like that. I don't think I have any more of a right to be there than they do. And that's why I don't like this term white privilege, meaning that her term is, what she uses in her article, is that there's an invisible knapsack full of tools and a compass and passports, and she just uses these allegorical terms. And that's not even, and it doesn't even, what is that exactly? I didn't grow up with advantages. I knew some rich kids. Privilege meant you could do things most people couldn't do. You know, like, trips to Europe, or, your parents drove a Mercedes and you lived in a big fancy house and you had a heated pool or whatever, just luxurious things most people have. I didn't grow up with that. I didn't grow up terrible or anything. I grew up in a nice house, and, my parents, but we didn't go on vacation. My parents did struggle, my dad had his own business. My parents didn't go to college. And people who, were educated and were more upper middle class didn't want me hanging out with their kids. So I did kind of experience a little bit of bigotry. So I do know kind of how that feels. Oh, and the other thing is, what a lot of people do when they want to shoot me down and really drill it into me is why I don't like the term white privilege, and why I think labels are a detriment, usually in all cases, was I had to go through an SED program because they didn't know what to do with me when I was a kid. I was depressed, I had some learning disabilities, which was called socially and emotionally disturbed, which were like kids that were basically going to wind up in fucking jail. So I spent some time with them, and they came from the most absolutely horrific circumstances that none of the people that are on social media that I know, that went to college, that grew up in the suburbs, and don't know shit about this kind of thing, wouldn't know about. They wouldn't know what it's like to experience that. So they think they can speak on behalf of me and shoot me down and say that I don't know anything about it, or know anything about what it's like to be discriminated against, or know anything about the difference between being privileged and not privileged. It's really fucking insulting, because you're basically saying because I'm white, I don't know what that's like, because I did have an experience. Well, it's unique to me, but I kind of learned how the system fucks over a lot of kids. And I went to a school where if you were poor, they treated you like shit. And they treated all the poor kids like fucking garbage, irregardless of race. I mean, it's the school I went to, most of them are white. But there was a project across from the street, there was low-income housing, and the school, not the kids, just the kids, but the administration discriminated against them and treated them horribly. So to say that someone who's white doesn't understand discrimination, or that people are treated badly through class bigotry, is arrogant on the part of some of these college professors and stuff, because they think that they like to associate things with race because it's more marketable and it's easier. Yes, people are discriminated against their race all the time, and it's fucking wrong. Just like it's fucking wrong to say that someone is privileged because they're white when they don't know their story. It's easy to look at somebody and say, you just look at somebody because they're black, and oh my god, they must have grew up in the ghetto, and they must have, had to struggle to get out of a gang or whatever, or, they think all of these things because they're black, or something like, it's bullshit, and they do it. That's how simple fucking minded people are. Everybody has it, most people, we all have different stories, we all come from different circumstances. And they vary. It doesn't vary just because of race. It varies because of the individual. But they don't want to delve into that because that's too complicated. It's everything in this country is painted with a broad stroke because, the demographic. Yeah, of course, disproportionately there are more poor Black and Hispanic people. It's not to say that there are of course. Well-to-do African Americans and well-to-do Hispanic people and stuff who lived in this country and worked hard and made better lives for themselves. It's to sort of just dismiss that and then say that, okay, well, we're just gonna say white privilege. It's just like the same thing with the hashtag Me Too. We're gonna generalize all men as being horrible fucking psycho rapist assholes. And they do the same thing with the rape awareness posters or sexual assault awareness posters on campuses and stuff like that. They always make the men look like the predator and the woman like the victim, and basically they make it like sex, the responsibility for consent for sex is only the guy's responsibility. The chick is always passed out or whatever, or there's just the scenario is always somehow the woman has been is been subdued. She had a Zima or two, and she can't consent to sex or whatever, and like Bryce from 13 Reasons Why fucking rapes her and shit, and it's bullshit. It's just to say that every guy is like that. Yes, there are some guys that are like that, and they're fuckers. But there's really good guys too, and good people. And your character can't just be made or established by your gender, your race. It's wrong to do that. But they do. Universities do it. Because it's just easier to market that way. They're simple-minded. They treat people like they're stupid. And that's why, that's why things are the way they are. There's no like, it's like you can control your behavior as a man. You can control your behavior as a person. A relatively sane person can do that, is capable of doing that. They don't talk about that at all. It just says, you know what, man, the minute you guys get a boner, you lose your mind. And that's how they think about it. You gotta keep yourself in check. And that's basically it. And it's acceptable. But it's fucking stupid. I mean, it's the same thing with this. I know I'm going from that kind of thing to white privilege, but it's just a generalization of a group of people. It wasn't good to generalize about black people back in the day. It was a horrible, ugly, disgusting thing to do to people of a certain ethnicity, to keep them down in that way. And I'm not saying white privilege keeps white people down in the same way, but it creates a wedge between people who have common problems who are of different races. And that can never be good. I mean, maybe what I'm saying is complete shit. You can say, whatever you want to send the comments in below, and welcome your views on this or whatever like that. But finding common ground is how we move forward. It's how we, we need to come together as a country about our problems, regular people, and forget the fuck about Donald Trump and all that bullshit with his porn stars and his connections with Russia and God knows what is going on in that sick fucking man's world. Okay, Donald Trump was always a corrupt, low-life piece of... Donald Trump is like, a John Gotti to me. He always was. He's just a little, he was a powerful thug from fucking New York that seduced enough of this country into electing him. So that has nothing to do with really us in solving our problems in the meantime and getting along better, and I think avoiding these divisive terms that I think are getting in the way of us, building a better future together, all of us. I mean, it's really, I mean, I might be full of shit, and a lot of people said I'm full of shit when I was having a discussion online about it, and I got a little heated, and I don't feel particularly good about it because it was someone I know from my hometown, and the person sort of intervened on it and about white privilege and why I thought it was kind of a toxic term, and it wasn't a good way to characterize people. It's not that there aren't rich people. There are privileged people, yes, privileged. but not everybody who's white is privileged. Being white and privileged are not mutually exclusive. You know, because you can be black and wealthy, and you can be, you know, other ethnicities, and you can be well off. They do exist. I'm not saying in the majority or anything like that, but to, you know, label people in that way, it's extremely reckless, and it hurts people. It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't just hurt white people. It really hurts everyone, because it really keeps us from communicating with one another, and it distracts us from the real problems that we all face. And as far, that's my opinion of it. I guess I'm probably wrong according to everybody else currently, but I really do feel that that's what it's been doing. Because to me, it feels like lately, it just feels like invasion of the body snatchers since Trump got elected. You know, people they just don't seem like they're making any sense. I don't know who the fuck anybody is anymore. It's freaky. You know, I just stay in the house. I don't even go out anymore. So it's weird. I mean, I do go out, but it's not much actually. But I the only person I interact with is my better half, and that's it. You know, I mean, that it's. I mean, but I do think the term has it's sort of warped reality in a way, in the way that I mean, Trump being president has definitely warped reality, which is why I made the aforementioned, you know, body snatchers analogy. But it is, they just don't. I can't. You know, you don't know when you don't know who you're talking to. Sometimes you're talking to someone, you assume they fucking hate Donald Trump and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I think he's a smart guy and he's gonna fix everything. He ran all those casinos and and he's rich. He's got the big tower and and a jet and. He's richy rich, you know, and then they like, holy fuck, you're okay, you know. So you gotta. I don't know who the hell I'm talking to when it comes to that, and so yeah. But that is my take on the, I guess, the concept of white privilege as it pertains to how people are implementing it now. And I think the effects of social media, the deleterious effects of social media on people, and wiring them in such a way where they lack the ability to kind of scrutinize things that are dubious, I believe. I'm D.S. Yoxheimer. If you like my channel, subscribe. If you have any comments, feel free to just let her rip below. And you take care of yourselves.